Hello, I'm Lisa Welsh, and I was the communications manager for Was 2021. And today I'm really grateful to be talking with Sam Winter about his presentation at the Congress. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, everybody. Sam Winter here, speaking to you from Western Australia. I'm a psychologist. I've been working in the area of transgender health, well-being and rights now for over 20 years. And I had the privilege of talking at the Sexual Justice Indaba at the Was 2021 conference. And I'd just like to say a little bit about what I was talking about, maybe whet your appetite to listen to the whole talk, which was about 8 minutes long. Trans people. Then there are about conservatively estimated to be about 25 million trans people worldwide, and the challenges of living as a trans person across much of the world are pretty broad and vast. For a lot of trans people, they live with daily experiences of stigma, and that stigma prompts a lot of harassment and abuse, prejudice and discrimination, violence for far too many trans people worldwide. And all of these experiences have the effect of marginalizing trans people, in so many cases, pushing them to the margins, the social, the economic, the legal margins of the countries in which they live, where they experience poor health and well-being, social, emotional, and physical well-being too. And sickness, and for far too many, death. All of these experiences exacerbated by additional levels of stigma that come from being perceived as poor, in very many cases they are very poor because they can't get jobs, being perceived as being involved in sex work, being perceived as being HIV positive. All of these sorts of perceptions add to the stigma, and to make things worse for many trans people, the sorts of health services that they can access are often poor in quality. Many cases, the healthcare providers themselves, the professionals involved in providing healthcare, are not competent clinically or culturally, in many cases hostile to their needs. And for that reason, many trans people do all they can to avoid health services of any sort. So for many, then, that is the sort of experience that they have. And along the way, they encounter so many sexual injustices. And that's really what I was talking about in that Indaba talk. So it seems to me that along the way, trans people encounter all sorts of sexual injustices and violations of their rights that are purely and simply prompted by their gender identity. Basic human rights such as to education, health and protection from medical abuses, work and an adequate standard of living, housing, freedom of movement and expression, privacy, security, life, actually, family, freedom from arbitrary deprivation of liberty, rights to fair trial, treatment with humanity while in detention, and freedom from torture, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. All of those rights actually underpin trans people's ability to lead authentic lives that match their gender identity, lives in which they can be comfortable in their gender identity. And it's these sorts of rights that on a daily basis across much of the world, trans people find, well, those rights are being denied them. So my talk at the Sexual Justice Indaba is very much about that. And at the end of the talk, I make a suggestion. It's really a personal view as a cisgender researcher and clinician who's worked with trans people for now over 20 years.
Mhm.
It's a personal view as to where we might begin in our attempt to perhaps chisel away at some of these violations that I
Mhm.
list in my talk.
Wow.
I
Well,
hope
thank
that
you.
helps.
It really does. And I think it's fantastic that you opened the conversation there. And I know that the WAS 2021 Congress actually did provide a stage for transgender and gender diverse individuals to speak about their experiences too. Thank you very much for sharing that, Sam. So your presentation was part of the Sexual Justice Indaba, which everybody who signed up for the Congress does have access to. It was a very powerful part of the whole event that I particularly enjoyed. So thank you for sharing that with us. And if anybody has any questions, would they be able to reach out to you directly?
Yes, I'd love that. I'd very much love that.
Fantastic. And they can do that as part of the Hoover app. So I'm sure that they will be able to. Thank you for your time, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Goodbye, Lisa, and all the best to everybody.
Thank you.